Dakota, and we'll see if this is a series that I will actually finish out. But so I've recently kind of gotten to Gloomhaven Digital. Gloomhaven is a game that's a turn-based strategy that was originally a board game. I played the board game a fair amount, but haven't really tried the digital version. Thinking about maybe doing a series in this, similar to Link in the sense that it's turn-based strategy. It can be pretty hard. There's a fair amount of thought that goes into each move, each action that you do. I figured it might be some content that's similar to what I've previously done in the past, a long while ago. Anyways, recently figured that I can stream rather than record, which means that it doesn't take as long for me to produce or make videos and have to encrypt and upload them. So yeah, we'll see if I can do this. Alright, so I'm gonna go ahead and start a new campaign. It's gonna be, so in this game, by the way, this video is gonna be just me talking about the game and the setup and like how it plays and what characters I'm gonna use and describing some of the stuff. There's no gameplay in this video. And then the next video will be the actual first battle of the campaign. So if you already know the game or are interested in watching that stuff, you might want to skip to that video. But yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and set up my guild here. Call this my Dead Dragon Guild. And like I've been known to do in the past, I'm just gonna do the hardest difficulty possible and see if I can't survive. I'm kind of afraid because I haven't really tried this, so I don't know when I can do this. In the tabletop game, there's only like maybe up to brutal. I don't know if deadly is even a thing. Like basically 2 levels higher than normal. But yeah, we'll see if I can manage this. The game generally is something where it kind of snowballs in the sense that if you can get big enough power scaling at the very start, when you're weakest, you can kind of roll the later missions. But if you are kind of behind on that curve, it's kind of hard to catch up. There's some other options here. I'm not going to really go through them. I don't think they're that important. So I'll just say yeah there. In the house rules, there's the variant where so the normal options is there's a crit and a miss that you can basically have happen on any attack. The misses are kind of brutal because then you don't get to do damage that turn. So I'll still go with that though. Advantage, disadvantage, this is kind of a niche. Advantage is when you pull 2 modifier cards or 2 random +1 or -1 deals on your attack, and you get the higher of the 2. Disadvantage, you get the lower of the 2. And then yeah, this is fine. Line of sight, I'm gonna go with the original rules. Summons, I'll go with the variant. I don't think it matters here. And spawn drops, yeah, that's fine. Okay, so yeah, Gloomhaven, really fun game. Has a lot of strategy, turn-based, and there's cards for the abilities that you have to manage to play the game. So I'm gonna go through that as soon as this thing reloads.
Welcome to the harsh lands of Gloomhaven, recruit. You think you have what it takes to become a mercenary out there on the edge of the world? We are paid to venture into the darkest forests of the region and to step into ancient crypts with the unmistakable stench of death and rotting flesh. Lovely places to earn a name for yourself. Be ready to face cutthroats, undead, fearsome tribes, dreadful demons from other realms. You didn't find yourself as a mercenary without knowing how to crack a few skulls, did you?
Alright. Before going to the Herring Wilderness surrounding Gloomhaven, you need at least 2 mercenaries. This is a party panel. You can add characters to it. Okay, so click on this and then click on the new mercenary to create the character. Alright. You'll need to choose one of the starting character classes. Each character has unique abilities and game style. As you progress and level up, you'll earn new ability cards and unlock more classes. Click on any fortresses to learn more about them and then select whichever mercenary you want. So, in the campaign, I need to have at least 2 characters for every mission, every battle. And I'm thinking, because the more characters you have in a fight, the longer it takes because there's more you have to manage each turn. I think I'm going to try a 2-player campaign, or 2-character campaign basically, where the 2 characters are going to be this dude, which is the Cragheart, and then and the Spellweaver. But for the first missions, I'm actually going to basically have 4 characters because it's a lot easier with more characters, and the initial missions where you're kind of the weakest, you don't have equipment quite yet, you don't have strong ability cards until you kind of level up a little bit. Those are going to be the hardest. So I'm going to use a full 4-character party for the first few missions maybe, and then just trim it down to 2 to make it easier on myself. But yeah, so the characters I'm going to use will be Cragheart. This is the class. So each class has abilities, and those are going to have ability cards. The Cragheart has 10 health to start with, which is kind of on the high end. The weaker characters only have 6 health, 8 health, 6 health. So yeah, 10 is on the high end. And the Cragheart is, I consider them a ranged damage dealer with very good splash damage. They do a strong true damage splash damage. So yeah, I'm gonna name this Cragheart Carbon. Alright, so personal quest is the character's sole reason for venturing. Once the objective is complete, the party will retire. Beware that the mercenaries retire, they can play one character. So yeah, each character will kind of pick what they want to do as their kind of life goal, and I'm going to try to do something where it doesn't take too long, it doesn't take too short to complete. And once the character retires after finishing a personal quest, these are the things that are rewards. So they unlock a new character class. These are the symbols for the character class, and then 1 prosperity, which is some other kind of global effect. So which of these? The Fall of Man, or the Study of Anatomy. I don't know that the Cragheart seems to be something that's fascinated with the body. So let's look at the Fall of Man. Complete 2 scenarios in Lingering Swamp. Then unlock the Fading Lookout and follow it to the conclusion. The evidence is all around you, right in front of your face, as long as you know how to look for it. The city is built on the bones of something much older. Others were here before you, and then they vanished. You must find some clue about what happened to the ones who came before. Sure, the Fall of Man, even though Cragheart is not really a man. Yeah, let's go with that one. Alright, you'll need a minimum of 2 mercenaries before you start your venturing. It's important to build a party. Alright, so the second one is going to be the Spellweaver. Beast, I think that's what it's called. They're just magical. They're also ranged DPS. They're all considered like a glass cannon because they have low health, but they deal tons of damage. Low health can die very fast. That's very true. On maybe more complex side, but very, very strong. So I'm gonna definitely choose her. And because her symbol looks like an asterisk, I'm gonna call her Astra. This is the same unlock as the study of anatomy. Pay in all things, donate 100 trank gold. That's not too hard to do. And then Lawbringer, kill 20 bandits or cultists. Well, you know, she looks like a light symbol. Although this also Pady, yeah, not one to donate very often because it's kind of a con. I'd probably go with Lawbringer. Kill 20 bandits or cultists. There is only order and chaos. That which is tamed and controlled, and that which is yet to be. Gloomhaven is chaos that needs to be controlled, and the first place to start is the rampant lawlessness in the surrounding wilds. Of course, the Wormlings don't know any better, but humans who go against the laws of man deserve no sympathy. Oh yeah, I'm bringing the law. I can feel the controlling of chaos within her. Okay. Click on this there. Can I just add? Okay. Before heading to your first quest, you should gear up. Go to the merchant shop. Okay, so these are the items that the merchant has. These are the gold that they have. 2 out of 2 is the amount of inventory they have. So characters, once only 2 characters will be able to buy the Iron Helmet, for instance, here. I'm not going to go through this quite yet because I'll come back to this at the end. Okay, when you're ready, click to the world map. Gloomhaven is isn't known for its well-mannered folk and good Samaritans. You can partake in city encounters, and then if you ever have a quest that looks too hard, you can go to the temple and donate to gain a blessing. The blessing is kind of a buff that you can get for the next battle that deals more damage. So first up here, I'm going to add my other mercenaries here. I'm going to have a brute. He's kind of a melee DPS, but also kind of a tanky one. Yeah, melee damage tank. High health, a fair amount of ability cards, which I'll talk about a little bit. But yeah, I'll take it. What is the name of my brute? I think I'll be Brash. Brash the Brute. Very synonymous. Battle Legend. Earn 15 perk points from completed battles. Oh, that sounds like something a brute would want to go for. Yeah, Battle Legend. Or Eternal Wanderer. Complete 15 scenarios from the base game. Oof. Yeah, am I really going to try and get him 15 scenarios? I don't think so. I think Battle Legends. Well, you really only earn 15 perk points from competing 15 battles. So technically this one's faster. This one is slower to complete than this one. This is so in character. So I guess I have to choose this one. So a perk point is like every battle you have a little battle goal, and if you finish your battle goal, you get like a perk point. So yeah, it's time to make a name for yourself. Any mercenary can go out and get the job done, but you are not just any mercenary. You want to do it in style. Tell the stories of your battles told by bards in taverns across the known world. If you do not leave behind a legend after you are gone, then what is the point of living? Yeah, totally. Brash, the battle legend brute. Okay. And for my last character, I'm going to go ahead and pick this class, the Scoundrel. Relatively lower in health, or actually middle health. they are melee damage. They're like a rogue. High mobility, high damage. So yeah, I'll take her. And what is her name going to be? I think I'll name her Penny. Pennywise, pound foolish. Okay. Helping Hand versus Seeker of Zorn. Like the brute would have unlocked this character symbol, this character class, the music note. So I don't think I will like the Helping Hand, even though this might be pretty easy to complete. Seeker of Zorn, complete 3 crypt scenarios, then unlock the scenario Noxious Selling. So I'll try this one. Even as a child, you can feel the call of Zorn. Once worshipped like as god, his flock has long since been destroyed and disbanded. But you can hear him calling. You will travel to Gloomhaven as he commands. Find his remains that bring the plague will once again be raised. Not a particularly friendly or good sounding battle or lifeful, but you know, take the good with bad. Pennywise, pound foolish. Okay. Let's go ahead and do that. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and do the city encounter, and then I'll go over the abilities that the characters have. So between battles, every time you're in the city, you can do like a city event, and it's just a random, event. On a trip to the new market, you see a curious sea chart prominently displayed in a Valrath merchant stall. Ah, I see this interests you, he says while holding it up, taking great care not to damage it. I've been told this map will lead you to a location of untold riches, wondrous beyond anything you've ever seen before. The Valrath gestures grandly with his free hand and his smile grows wild. How can you say no to this? Just make me an offer. The map does look valuable. Decide to bargain for it. Refuse to deal with the merchant. Okay, sure. Yeah. I lose 20 collected gold. Okay. After some amount of haggling back and forth, you settle on a price and pay for the map. You recognize some of the landmarks and should be able to find this place of untold treasure by hiring a ship. Okay. Ugh, that's disgusting. Everyone lose 5 gold? I mean, this is only fair. If I was truly kind of end goal oriented here and knowing that I'm only going to probably use a carbon pasture, maybe I have Brash and Penny take the lumps for me here. Yeah, kinda. I mean, I'll roleplay this. This should be distributed evenly. Alright, this is another area to fight initially in this. Okay. Alright, so I'm going to go over the abilities here and talk about how it plays. So each character has these ability cards, and mercenaries will unlock new and powerful ability cards each time you level up. Look for synergies between ability cards and adapt your hand depending on the enemy's types that you'll be facing. Having the right cards against the right enemies might just keep you alive. On the ability panel, you can edit the decks of cards that you take to each dungeon. Each mercenary has a different amount of cards that you can carry and go adventuring with. Okay, so he has these ability cards. Each one is unique, so there's just a lot of strategy involved here. You'll note that there's a certain number here, 11 out of 11 equip. The equip means that you only bring 11 into the battle out of, technically, like there's 3 that's unequipped here, so out of 14. And so you kind of have to decide which are the best 11. So the gameplay is you choose 2 ability cards every turn. Each ability card has a number representing the speed of it. A larger number represents slower speed. A lower number, like 13, represents a higher speed. You choose which of the two cards to be the speed that you play for that turn, that the character plays for that turn. So if you choose like a 46 and 87, you can choose, or 46 and 35, these two cards to play for your turn. This means you can either be at speed 46 for the turn or speed 35 for the turn. There are pros and cons to playing fast or slow, or like acting before other characters, acting after other characters. Like sometimes you'll want to act slow so that other characters are moving towards you, like enemies move towards you, and then you act after them and move towards them and then attack them. Or sometimes you want to just attack them back, so you might act fast for the turn. So anyways, I'm going to go ahead and just remove the ones where, since it's going to be too long to go to, I'm going to choose the ones I think I'll use and then describe the ones that the actions here. So let's talk about Massive Boulder here just as an example. Each ability card has a top half and a bottom half that are separated. The top half is generally an attack action, attack ability, and the bottom half is generally a move action ability, or maybe some utility ability that's not an attack, like a heal. But so here, the Massive Boulder, the top attack ability is going to be attack 3 at range 3. So this is a hex-based game. 3 hexes away is how far away the target can be from carbon. And then there's a secondary effect that all allies and enemies adjacent to a target suffer 1 damage. Suffer 1 damage is the kind of true damage, so it goes through shields. Pretty strong splash effect. The nature symbol, the leaf, the green leaf that appears at the bottom there, that just means that the ability also generates a nature element. And certain abilities generate elements, like there's other elements like fire, ice, light, dark, just like 6 or so. But certain abilities generate them, and then other abilities will consume them. So an example of the ability that consumes would be Crater, attack 3 at range 3, and then if you have a nature element already generated from a previous character or technically a previous turn, like nature elements which last for like 1 round after that they're generated. So here it consumes the nature element that's already been generated previously to do a push effect, and that's like it's kind of like a knockback, not like a stun. It's a knockback pushing the target further away from where the cracker is. And also the one with the little gold icon is representing XP, so it generates also 1 XP to do this. XP is kind of limited in terms of which abilities will generate XP and how you gain XP. So this is kind of important to keep in mind. So let's go ahead and go kind of through some of the abilities that, for particularly the Carbon Asher, that I think is going to be important. So this is attack 3, gains you 1 XP. It also will attack like 2 targets that are adjacent. So the gray cell, that like red icon, means that that's where your character is, and then the 2 red cells are where the enemies are. So this means that it can attack 2 enemies that are like opposing on opposite sides. That's why it's called opposing strike of where the cracker is. Normally you can only like target 1 adjacent target on a melee attack. The bottom action is on the next 6 melee attacks, target you, gain retaliate 2, and then like there's this that instead of infinity symbol and those like 6 little symbols there, that just keeps track of how many times you've been attacked, 6 times. And retaliate 2 just means that you kind of have a thorn effect. You deal 2 damage back to whoever attacks you. It's literally a thorns effect. Oh, the bottom right icon on the bottom half is the little kind of rectangle with a flame. That symbol denotes that the ability is what we call a lost ability. When you play cards, they are played from your hand. You pick 2 cards on your turn, you play them from your hand, and then they go into the discard pile. Unless the ability is a lost ability, like that little icon, that means it goes into the lost pile. The lost pile are they cannot be reused during the battle. So normally once everything is in your discard pile, there's a way for you to retrieve by resting the cards in your discard pile back into your hand. And then you cannot retrieve the stuff that's in your lost pile. Alright, Avalanche Top Action is a lost action. It's attacks for 4 for 2 adjacent enemies, and also you can consume nature to gain extra XP and also increase this to attack 5 on those enemies. Again, this is a loss, so it has this one-time use. But the key part of this is Avalanche, bottom half. It creates 2 obstacles, which allows you to manipulate the map, because obstacles are things that you can't walk through and your enemies can't walk through, and it changes how the enemies can behave, because if the enemy can't have a spot to attack you next to you, if they're melee, right, then they won't attack you. So I'm going to use that particularly because the enemies do a ton of damage at the start, and I need a way to control the map to prevent that. Normally advance, heal 4, range 2, very strong heal, generates nature, very useful because he has cards that use nature. Bottom half, move 2, deal true splash damage to the things around you at the end. Very strong. Enemies have shields which kind of prevent damage taken, and those shields really prevent a lot of damage. But when you have something in effect that suffer 1 damage, this just goes through shields. Massive Boulder, we went through this. Bottom movement is 4, so that's a really strong movement. Backup ammunition is really strong too. This is probably the key card in the Craghearts toolkit. It allows you to make the top half allows you to make your range attacks be multi-target. So instead of targeting like 1 enemy with a massive boulder, you're hitting 2 enemies with massive boulders and then splashing damage around that, so it can deal just lots of damage because of the splash as well. It is the loss though, and then move 3. Oh, by the way, when you're selecting cards on your turn, you select 2 of them. The reason why you select 2 is because you're actually using the top half of 1 card and the bottom half of the other card. So you don't decide when you select, but you decide when you activate for your turn which actions to actually use. But it's kind of like a jigsaw puzzle. You have to mix and match appropriately to kind of make sure you're doing like an appropriate attack action, appropriate move action. And sometimes that strategy also involves thinking about the speed that you're selecting your cards at. So for instance, Massive Boulder is a really slow card, and then Upheaval is a really fast card. And if I select these 2, I can choose to make the speed be 13 for the Cragheart for the turn, which means even though this is normally something that you can only activate, you can only do this slowly. You will do this quickly if you are activating 13. So yeah. So this is why I'm selecting this card mainly for the speed. If you notice, all these speeds are pretty big numbers. Like there's no single digit number, or even nothing in the 10s, 1 thing in the 20s. So the Cragheart moves pretty slowly or activates pretty slowly in a turn. This gives it nice optionality to act quickly. The actions for the Disable Evil is pretty garbage. They're both lost actions, so they can't be reused. But another thing about the cards is, even though the abilities themselves are kind of lost, you can always use what we call a basic attack or basic move. You'll see that next to 13, there's on the left side there's a attack 2, and on the bottom side there's a move 2. That means that you can always use a top action as a basic move, as a basic attack 2 melee, or you can always use the bottom as a basic move 2 without any real effects. So yeah, Crater attacks at range and pushes back. Pretty useful. The bottom action is a loss, so that's kind of meh, but it's useful in that sense it does do some true damage to the enemies around you. Third Tornado is really strong. It's a very big AoE at range. You can increase its attack. It only deals 1 damage, but if you have nature to consume, you can increase it to 2 damage on things. The muddle effect is kind of a disadvantage effect, so enemies and allies that get affected by that have to pull 2 attack modifiers from their deck to see what to, and choose the lower of the 2. Kind of like it's kind of a mixed attack weaker in general. Earth Cloud, 2 attack at range 5, which is a huge range, like normally it's range 3. And then you can consume nature to immobilize, which is the target doesn't get a chance to move. Heavy Swing, attack 3, melee, push 1, push back 1. And then if they are pushed into an obstacle, they suffer 2 true damage, which is really strong. But the issue here is like this is a pretty slow speed, 57. And then the bottom action, which is also kind of a very strong action, it's to increase by 1 all the range attacks. So for instance, if I use Heavy Swing, Dirt Tornado, consuming a nature, that would make the attack be +1 from nature, +1 from the Heavy Swing at the bottom, which would make it a 3 damage attack through all those hexes, plus model. So it's really strong if you can combo it. Forceful Storm, range AoE on a 3 hex, pretty good by itself, but also disarms, which means that the affected enemies will not be able to generate or not be able to attack for the turn. Very strong. This is a loss though, so you have to be careful. And then and it generates wind. The bottom action is pretty good too. If you can combo it, it does 2 extra damage for melee attacks. So the issue here is like you have to be more positioned next to the enemy because you normally have a movement for your bottom action, so you're unable to move. But if you're standing next to the enemy, then yeah, maybe opposing strike for 3 becomes opposing strike for 5. But the top action is like super strong. Oh, I can actually do this. Okay. And then sometimes I think opposing strike is very questionable, and Nature's Lift is also very questionable in terms of its overall, like when you want to use it. So I'll sometimes probably swap these 2 out. Nature's Lift is just heal 2, range 3, and targeting 2, so multi-target heal. Alright, for Aster, my Spellweaver, I'm going to go ahead and probably use these cards. Fire Orbs, retarget AoE, very strong. Impaling Eruption. This is 3 damage to targets that are within 4, but also snaking through anything. So imagine like it's like creating a schism or an earthquake ring. If you draw a path from where she casts the spell to a target 4-way, it'll hit through all those targets, target up to 4-way. So technically, like she can do this, like everything around her, or 4 things around her. Reviving Ether. This is the most important card in her toolkit. The top half allows her to recover lost cards or burnt cards, I guess. So again, like Fire Orbs and Impaling Eruptions, those are lost cards, and they go into the burn pile, I guess. And this one will actually recover those cards. So even though these are normally just like 1 time or 1 battle effects, this will make it like 2 times during battle that you can also use it. Freezing Nova, very good overall. Allows you to immobilize things to maybe CC them that way. Mana Bolts, very quick action, allows you to do an attack for 2, range 3, and increase it. This is consume any element, not just like nature or ice, or to do 3 damage, 2 attack, 3 damage, 3 attack, 3 damage, 3 increase the damage to be pretty render. The issue there is also that there's very little way to generate ice right now. Frost armor, 3 damage, 3 attack if you consume elements, and also generates ice. So you could possibly use this, but this is a loss to do this. Flame strike. This is very powerful. This consume fire to the wound. Wound is like a 1 damage per turn. 1 damage per turn debuff. So yeah, but you have to have fire. And then the bottom is just an attack. This is unusual because normally you don't have attacks at the bottom, but if you forgo your movement, you can do attack. And then the last one here that I'll choose for her is going to be heal 3, range 3, very good top. And then the bottom action is to summon an ally. Summon allies is basically like another character, another NPC. They kind of do their auto AI deal, like they'll attack anything within range or move closer to something that in order to attack. This one is 2 health, 2 movement, 3 attack, and a range 2, so pretty strong. And then for the brute, I'm going to go ahead and take out the grab and go and the add and skewer. Yeah, I think that might be it. So trample has a pierce which goes through shields. Pierce means that you ignore some number of shields. Shields means that normally reduce damage by some set amount. Like so, shield 1 means that every time you take damage, that means you lower it by 1. So shields are very strong defensively. Like something has 2 shields, that means you deal on a normal attack of 3, just 1 damage. So yeah, this one's good for the bottom for heal. This one's pretty decent movement, kind of useful surrounding attack. Although if you're surrounded by this many elements, you might be worried. This many enemies, you might be worried a corpse by the time you try to do this. Provoking roar. Disarm is really strong. Allows people to like not have an attack that turn. And also 10 means this you cannot probably do this before the enemy does anything. This is pretty good for the bottom half. I'm not sure if this is worth it for the bottom half though. Push 2 is useful in the sense that but then you already have this other one that doesn't push. Like this one doesn't push. So maybe I want to use this one instead, since this is move 4. They both have like loss action. This one's a loss action. 6 damage is a lot though, that's true. If I do grab and go, I might try balance measure. Balance measure deals damage equal to the movement that you did, so if you do grab and go, bottom move 4, you can do a top action attack for 4. So I don't know. Oh, yeah. Let's go. All these other ones are pretty useful. I don't know how useful this bottom one is. Heal 2. Yeah, so I think at this point, let's go through just the merchant deal. So they only have 25 gold. So I think what's important for Carbon on the first mission will be to have a cloak of invisibility. Allows them to ignore damage for a turn because they're invisible. Same thing with Spellweaver. She needs a cloak. And for the other two here, I think he's going to go with the Iron Helmet, which allows him to not get crit on, and a small item that is a healing potion to heal 3 for a turn. And for the last one here, I really should have just given them more gold. Okay, so the last one here, I think she is going to go with a Iron Helmet as well, because she doesn't really want to get crit on. And for the and maybe buy a potion. Does she want a healing potion or a stamina potion? Both are kind of useful. She doesn't have a lot of cards, but also she doesn't have a lot of ways to heal herself, or if she gets into trouble with her health, she's also going to throw. Kind of inclined to go with the healing potion here. Yeah, I think I'll go with the healing potion here. Okay. I think that's gonna be it for this setup video. And then next video again, I'll go ahead and just do the first battle. Alright, I'll maybe see you guys then.